Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good evening. We welcome you to World Mental Health Day on this edition of Health Matters. I'm Khawa Solomon. Don't go anywhere. Get yourself nice and comfy. Tell your friends and family. The highlight is mental wellness, all about psychiatric conditions. And if you're running away, you're not understanding it, it is literally the time where you need to sit down and just enhance your horizon. We have a line of experts, so please interact with us. Tell us what is your knowledge like when it comes to psychiatric conditions and mental health. We know that there was a rise during lockdown in the various stages when it was especially hard lockdown. And dealing with our family and our loved ones was a bit of a challenge, but we got through it. So let's hear from you what your mental wellness conditions are like, if it has gotten better or worse during lockdown, and what have you learned and possibly accomplished during that time. Even those possible survivors of COVID-19, those who have lost their loved ones. We know ultimately as Muslims, we are blessed to have our faith, and those who believe in the oneness of Allah and understanding that the Almighty is in control of everything. So let's deal with this topic head on. Please do interact with our WhatsApp line. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear some criticisms, some critiques, some comments, questions even. Do tell your friends and family to follow us on itvnetworks.tv. We now give you the latest COVID-19 stats here in South Africa. So that's the latest we have within our provinces, and last week we saw an interesting rise in numbers and how the provinces grew and also lowered with regards to what were the highest and lowest numbers within South Africa. And in the rest of the world where we are reaching, let us know also in what areas you are finding yourself. If you are in lockdown, as we know in certain countries, lockdown has been implemented again. And in South Africa, we are utterly grateful that we have seen the plateau and numbers are increasing. But that does not mean we are not following the mask rule, the hand sanitizing rule. I think it should be a daily thing, and having to implement that was absolutely pertinent. So let's continue with the show with our weekly wellness insert and have a listen to Alima Farhana. Welcome back. We chat to Alima Farhana Hathurani, based here in Johannesburg, and we hear from her how important mental wellness is and how does it affect the youth and encompass our religion as well. Assalamu alaikum to you, Alima Farhana. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shukran for your time. Let's chat about mental wellness in the context of Islam, and in particularly generally the thought processes that goes in with when one hears you are suffering from a particular illness.
I think generally when we hear, sadly, we tend to, well, it depends. I think individually, it depends how people perceive when they hear things like depression, anxiety, and how they actually want to, perceive that is. You get some people who will stigmatize and say, you know what, there's probably something wrong with your faith. Perhaps this person has weakened faith. Then you have others who will have the understanding of what's going on and who will choose to be, supportive, and who will choose to be, like I said, understanding towards such a person. In terms of Islam and all of that, the Islam recognizes that there are such things. Therefore, there is Quranic ayats, there's several du'as that we can read during times like this. And we know that the Quran says, Allah mentions in the Quran that verily in the remembrance of Allah do the hearts find rest. So Quran definitely acknowledges that, we as humans were created we worry. We know that even in terms of our predecessors, with our Sahaba, with our Anbiya radiallahu an, and our Anbiya alayhi salam, that they too went through stresses and worries and difficulties. So it is there, and we can't deny that it's not prevalent, and that Islam doesn't recognize depression, or it doesn't recognize anxiety and distress and things like that.
Let's talk about the supports. And alhamdulillah, you have the connection with both women and our youth. And you're saying aspiring to inspire. What does that mean to those that need support going through this, especially with the loved ones literally on the doorstep?
I feel like I said, it's not all households, and it's not everyone that goes through this, but a lot of women are affected with not having that proper support structure when they go through difficulties, divorce, or when they lose a spouse. You'll find that women are not supported adequately, and they don't have that support structure to help them navigate through those difficulties in life. And I think this is where we come about, where I come about, where I use these platforms, with the magazine, with social media, where we talk about difficulties with life's challenges, and that it doesn't just afflict certain people, it can afflict all of us. So I think that is where I come in, and I try and, kind of normalize mental health. And that is where I think we need to come. That is like the real importance. I feel that, we try and normalize it, that mental health is important. We need to take care of our mental health as much as we need to take care of our physical health.
So, Mu'allima Farhana, if we look at today, we have to move with the times. We have to stick to reality. And I know there's sayings even in Islam that you raise your child in their time, not in the time that you were raised. So let's talk about the mental health conditions and the taboo topic that people steer away from instead of handling it. Why is that the case? Why are we still stuck in the past, I think?
I think, again, like I said, there's a stigma. And I think it's just basically, it comes down to a lack of information. We're not comfortable to, like I say, normalize it in our homes. And remember, every change starts within our homes. We cannot go out and make a change if we as women do not start that change within our households. And again, we need to start normalizing these struggles. When we make things taboo, when we stigmatize people, when we make people feel like it's not normal to feel depressed. It's not normal to feel anxious, or we associate it with weakness. This is where the taboo comes in, and this is where the stigma comes in. And I think people are still not comfortable to have these conversations with their loved ones. Why are you depressed? What is creating anxiety in your life? How can we help? We still prefer to sweep things under the carpet, because we just say to each other that, you know what, we have Islam. And I mean, I'm not denying that we don't. Obviously, that is there. We have Islam, read your Salah, read your Quran, and everything is going to come right. But it doesn't generally work like that. Okay. This is where, times have changed, and this is where we need to start recognizing, people's experiences, acknowledging their experiences, and I think that is where the taboo comes in, when we just fail to recognize other people and their experiences.
In conclusion, as a published writer, what are your writings about when you encourage others to speak out and to support each other, as well as, get involved in this, because you want to normalize it? So how do you get involved in it and make people talk more on it? What is the approach?
I think for me, the approach is, firstly, I put myself out there. I look at my life's experiences, the things that I've been through, being a single mother, being, going through divorce, going through so much as women. We all kind of like share similar struggles as women. And I feel like, going out there and speaking about these struggles with other women helps connect us with each other. And I think for me, that is where my platform comes in, and that is where I feel like, if we can raise these discussions, if we can talk openly about them, and if we cannot, remove that like we go again, we say the stigma behind it, then obviously it becomes a more comfortable discussion to have with each other. And inspiring to inspire is just exactly about that day, coming onto a relatable stance to other people, to other women, to even youth for that matter, because they too struggle in today's times with a lot of things. So my approach would be, like I say, just be relatable, talk about our life's experiences. There's nothing that we need to be ashamed of in terms of mental health. There is no shame to
Yeah.
mental health. It's not this sickness that we make it that, there's something wrong with you if you are struggling with anxiety or depression or anything like that.
Okay. Malima Farhana, please do connect with her at her private and own Maktab Madrasa in Houghton, as well as Covered Magazine brand ambassador, published writer. Do connect with her in various platforms and reach out to that positivity of aspiring to inspire. Shukran to you, Malima, and all the best. Till we chat again. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. We now connect with our COVID-19 survivor, Fatima Boomgod, but more just after this. Some inspiring words from our Alima based here in Houghton, and definitely an issue to tackle when it does come to women and their wellness, mental wellness that is. Do connect with us as we discuss World Mental Health Day. And it's not just for today, it's something that needs to be taken throughout the year, inshallah. We have various experts and we tackle a little bit on ADHD, some of the perceptions, misconceptions, and even a doctor who's a patient of ADHD. So we continue our road with COVID-19, and one is to now introduce our survivor. Every week we have a weekly survivor update, and today we chat to Fatima Boomgod from Bosman, Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum to you, Fatima, and welcome to Health Matters.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We appreciate the time. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. And just looking at your bio and how you introduce yourself as being a wife to a wonderful husband, and that positivity just, shines through, a mother to 3 beautiful children, alhamdulillah. Tell us a bit about yourself and your journey as a COVID-19 patient.
Well, it all started for my daughter's birthday. I went to the shops, and then 5 days later, I started getting some chills. These chills weren't very familiar because it came with headaches and it came with the postnasal drip, but it just wasn't something that I was used to. Working at a school, I needed to make sure that whatever, Mark, I'm just a bit nervous over here. Working at a school, I needed to make 100% sure that when I go back, I'm not going to test positive in any way. But it turned out that when I went to the doctor, she said my symptoms were definitely that of the COVID status, and I had to go for the test. So myself and my husband, both of us went for the test. I ended up being positive, and he was negative. And immediately I had to isolate myself from the rest of the family. And that wasn't very pleasant, but alhamdulillah, shukr, I never had any severe symptoms. I just had the very mild, just the fever, or at least the chills, and a slight headache and a slight scratchy throat. There was no breathing difficulty, no respiratory ailments, alhamdulillah.
Well, Fatima, for you, what was the worst part of having COVID, would you say?
The worst part of having COVID was being separated from my family and being isolated. But we had to make it positive, we had to make sure that I was at home. We could have our daily dates through the window and speaking through the door. But alhamdulillah, there was no difficulty in any of the symptoms, and
Okay.
I am just really blessed, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. What was it like for your family to be, for you to be separated from them? And I think maybe it was worst for you because you're so an interactive mom. So what was the experience like being separated from them, and how did that maybe affect you spiritually?
Like I said, we were very lucky. Even though I was isolated from them, I was still in the house. There are so many other family members that goes to hospital, they don't come back. So I think we really appreciated each other so much more. Just knowing that you are now a COVID, you have a COVID status.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was in the house, there's just no words that can explain the gratitude that I have right now towards Allah, and just having my family around me and having my neighbors and friends and, looking after me, looking after my family every single day.
Yeah.
The family and friends and neighbors would bring food, and my husband didn't have to worry. So alhamdulillah, by Allah's amazing mercy, I think I was very lucky in that regard.
Alhamdulillah. Let's talk about, as wrap up, because we have to conclude, Fatima. As a survivor, what is your message to others?
The first message is to have positive thoughts, keep your faith in Allah. He will never let you down. Appreciate your loved ones around you. Always, be grateful for the small and big mercies that Allah bestow upon you.
Positive mental health affirmations from occupational therapist and COVID-19 survivor Fatima Boomgaz. As you can hear, the Bosman community is close. And when one is suffering from COVID-19, the rest of your neighbors pull through. So Fatima, we appreciate your time. All the best. And please do keep up that positivity, inshallah. We now move on. Assalamu alaikum to you. We now move on to a guest we have interviewed before, and looking forward to his journey and what's up with his walk from, I think it was from Johannesburg to Durban. That is Ricardo, and his highlights in fighting depression. So let's look at his journey, and we'll play you a little bit of a video entitled "You Are Not Alone."
Hello, my name's Edith.
Brian Matulich.
Zunathi Mkhize.
Callum Harris.
Angelo Casella.
Julian Salmo.
Yaganze Mshwana.
Julian Pike. Kyle.
Vaughan Lucas. And I, as a depression sufferer, am here to tell you that it is okay. You can find the help you need.
We are all suffering in this world, but we can do it together.
Remember that you guys do have a friend, family, somebody out there who's always willing to listen.
If you ever need my help,
We got your back, we love you.
It's okay to feel the way that you do. There's a way through it.
All you have to do is reach out.
Although everything seems to be lost, just please remember that you are not alone.
You're not alone.
you are not alone.
You're not alone.
No, you are not alone.
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
And you are not alone.
You are not alone.
And you want to hear those words when you are isolated, when you are suffering from depression, because that's how you feel. You feel alone. A mental condition that leads up to loneliness, suicide. And as the Alima mentioned this morning, earlier on, Alima Farhana, that yes, you have your faith, you have your belief in Allah, you have your 5 prayers, your connection that you have with the Almighty, but yet you might still feel alone. So there is help out there for you. And one of those guys that are highlighting it, and he's got a beautiful story. Last time we chatted to him, he mentioned, just to give you a background, he mentioned that his life was perfect. He didn't have any sort of trauma or horrible childhood or terrible teenage life. He just fell into depression, unfortunately. And he had family and friends that got him out of it, alhamdulillah. And then he decided to start an organization, a founder of Walk to Durban. So a big thank you to Walk to Durban, that Walk for Depression. We'll just link up with him in a minute or so, Ricardo, telling us his story and understanding that this condition is real, no matter what normal circumstances you think you might be in. More with Ricardo and his walk for depression just after this. Welcome back. Last time we chatted to Ricardo, he shared his story of struggling just to wake up, not realizing that this was depression that was hit him. And he had a team of professionals, friends and assistants to help him get through. Otherwise, he would not be here today. Today, they highlight and promote mental health, suicide prevention, and healthy living. Ricardo, an absolute pleasure chatting to you again, founder of Walk to Durban. Welcome back to Health Matters.
Thank you so much for having me.
So glad we have you back after your long walk to Durban.
No, it hasn't started yet.
Okay, not yet.
What happened is we were struggling to raise the funds because we were asking for donations, and obviously COVID is a thing. And so we were busy speaking to a company that we've published about, Brands South Africa, and we were speaking about getting them involved, and we finally got the sponsorship through the deal and how everything's going to run. And now we're just waiting for all of that to be finalized, and hopefully that can then go to us releasing an actual date of the walk. So yeah, we're just sorting out that sponsorship situation so that we can go for the walk. But yeah, it's still happening. It's just all the logistics of getting money.
Delayed it a bit. Tell us, what was the campaign like thus far? Because of course, in the meantime, you're still running the information, you're still getting people connected to highlighting, suicide prevention and promoting mental health. In that same breath, what were the responses like with people being aware of this?
We kind of ran a dry on the campaigning for 10 days because I obviously am still doing my university. So I had to go quickly do university exams and stuff. So for about 10 days, we didn't do anything, but we came back, we posted about the Walk to Durban going back into effect, what's been happening with sponsors, and everyone just really piled on with the support. We're still going around promoting the You Are Not Alone. And people are still coming up to us and saying that, oh my God, it's so exciting to hear about these things. And we're very excited to keep going. And really the main thing that's been hitting me is I get a lot of personal messages of people going like, thank you so much for doing this. I felt really alone. And now I don't feel alone. It feels like there's someone who doesn't completely come from the celebrity sphere. It's just a random kid. And he's like, yeah, I'm so excited that I have someone to look up to that isn't like a Johnny Depp or Chris Hemsworth or anything like that. I'm just like a normal, everyday guy. And they're like, this makes it feel like it's not such a big thing.
So just to highlight, World Mental Health Day that we're focusing on, is your fight for depression over? Do you find it still coming on? From a personal note, you at university, you have various stresses, anxiety. What has your depression been like thus far now?
So I've been dealing with depression for since I was 13, 12, that's when I started really getting these really bad, sad moments and hitting lows. And it comes and goes in waves. So I've had since I finished shooting my movie for my exam, because I study film, I was I was riding a high, and then it hit me really low, and I just went 2 days of I struggled to get out of bed. And it was at those moments, it's the help and the constant being able to talk about it and be free about my emotions and not have the stigma or not be afraid of the stigma has helped me just get through it. I get up, I'm like, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay to be sad. I'm just going to focus on doing the things that make me happy. And I don't try to wear it off or say, nah, I can't have this happen. I can't have this happen. I just look at those and I try to find the reason for them. And then that helps me go through it a little bit easier.
Okay.
So
during those low moments, during those low moments, getting a quick fix is quite attractive. What keeps you away from those ills and negativities of people, drugs, and all of those other stuff that could actually make the depression worse and not dealing with the issue?
With terms of people and not having negative people in my life, I learned very quickly that sometimes people aren't good for you, and it's okay to not like everyone and not have to be friendly with everyone and have those people as your friends. So I try to surround myself with people who understand where I'm coming from, and it's not like they being like, oh, Ricardo's just trying to get attention. They understand that it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it does. And so I have a roommate that is a fantastic roommate. I get in a sad moment. He literally sometimes just comes up to me. He's like, let's go for a drive, because he knows that getting out of the house will reset my brain a lot easier. And then I've just always, in terms of like not going into any like social ills of like drinking and like doing drugs and stuff like that, I just try not to like let myself get to that mentality. When I start thinking about using any of those like substances and drugs and stuff like this, when I'm like, okay, there's a real problem here. I need to go talk to someone. And usually I'll go to my roommate, and my roommate will be like, you're being dumb if you think this is the solution, which hasn't happened ever. But I trust my roommate would look at me and be like, don't be dumb.
You're lucky, you know, and that's the Almighty has given you sort of that avenue. What about people who doesn't have that connection or cannot latch onto a positive aspect or individual in their life? What are your suggestions to help them through their sad and bad moments? You did some affirmations, I noticed, and you've mentioned that. But you know, often people cannot get to that point. So just give us some guidance on how to latch on to positivity when it's not necessarily around you.
I think that someone needs, if they're at a moment of sadness, like the main thing is first understanding that you are sad or you're feeling something that brings you down. It's not allowing you to be positive, allowing you to stay hype or keep going and move forward. And you need to just, first of all, understand that. And because you start to understand what makes you sad or the reason why you're being sad, then you can really look into yourself and start looking at the things that make you happy. And then when you're on those sad moments, focus on them highly. And like, for me, like example, when I first spoke to you, I believe I told you about how the walk, I just started to get out to walk because I couldn't stay inside my house. And that's how the walking became a thing. And it's just about like, I realized that staying at home drove me insane. So I started to try and get out of it. It's about taking those moments and analyzing them. And if you really are struggling by yourself, we on the Walk to Durban have posted a lot of the helplines out there. A lot of them are free. You can call SADEG's helpline. That will help you with anxiety and depression. And they also have a suicide helpline. And you can go and talk to those people. And it's all free. You just pick up the phone, call them. And they, even if you miss the call, they will call you back. Because I remember one of my friends had phoned them and he hung up immediately because he couldn't. He was like, I can't speak to a stranger. And they phoned him back. And then because they phoned him back, that was the chance for him to vent, because it felt like he was being allowed that option to talk. So it's about just taking it out, finding the helplines, finding what suits you, and having those introspective moments to realize what works.
Absolutely. And I know SADEG also has an SMS line for them to call you back if you just don't have any time to give them a call. So various modes and methods. Don't give up and don't make excuses. You can do more. And Ricardo started just, getting out and taking one step at a time. And now he's walking all the way to Durban. So good luck with that and your sponsorship and the rest of all those logistics. We would want to hear an update soon as you have a date. But keep connected.
Well, it all gets posted on the Walk to Durban social medias, which you can obviously find. It's been popping up and down there, I've seen. So you can definitely go search it out there. We constantly are posting there, letting people know what's happening, just so that everyone is connected and knowing what happens. We had like that 10-day spree where we weren't online, but we're back now and talking about it.
Will do. Walk to Durban, and Ricardo and his team, join them and get all the necessary update. Thank you so much, Ricardo. We appreciate it. All the best. Until we chat again.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
No problem. All the best.
Goodbye.
So we now tackle child and adult psychiatrists with Dr. Brendan and Dr. Shabir, ADHD and more on mental wellness. But first, have a look at this. What does an ADHD hear?
Hi, I'm Dave Perry, the founder of Living Adventure. What you're going to hear now is the sound of an ADD brain as opposed to a non-ADD brain. We have a grade 1 teacher telling a story to her children. This is the way it sounds to non-ADD children.
Today we're going to start learning about the rooms in your house. In Afrikaans, a room is called a kamer. Okay, so we have a couple of rooms. We have a badkamer, which is your bathroom. We have a slaapkamer, which is the sleeping room, which is called the bedroom. We have an eetkamer, where you eat. That is the dining room. I know some of you eat in the lounge. You shouldn't be. You should be eating in the dining room. You have a sitkamer, which is the sitting room, which is your lounge.
Now, let's listen to what the ADD child heard.
Okay, today we're going to start learning about the rooms in the house. In Afrikaans, a room is a kamer. Okay, so we have a couple of rooms. We have a badkamer, which is your bathroom. We have which is the sleeping room, which is called the bedroom. We have an eetkamer, where you eat. We have a sitkamer, which is lounge.
It's quite a difference, isn't there? So finally, I want you to listen to just the voice of the teacher without any of the other sounds that distracted their attention.
Okay, today we're going in Afrikaans, a room is a kamer. Okay, so we have a, which is your bathroom, which is the sleeping room, which is called, we have an eetkamer, where you eat. It's called the lounge. You have a sitkamer, which is lounge.
Wow, quite an intense video, and sometimes you have to take yourself to that place because we, as much as we can see, we can read, we watch videos, we're literal people. That video, it absolutely made an impact. So if you do not know or you're not aware of ADHD or ADD and the world that they live in, we talk more with our specialist just after this. Stay with us. So from mental wellness, from Islamic perspective, to walk for depression, now we chat to specialists in child and adolescent psychiatry, Drs. Brendan as well as Dr. Shabir, specialist as well. So ADHD is the topic, and just before the break, we played a very important video, the difference between what an ADHD child is hearing in class and what the others are. So let's now connect with Dr. Brendan and Dr. Shabir. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. A very good evening and welcome to Health Matters.
Evening.
Hi, okay. Good to see you with us, Dr. Brendan. Okay, so you've also written a book. If we could start with you, Dr. Brendan, you've written a book called What's the Fuss About ADHD. Tell us quickly about your interest, your intense interest in this subject, and why should people be making more aware of this topic?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here with you and the viewers. My interest in ADHD really started out by accident, to be honest. In studying child psychiatry, obviously came across ADHD, and what I initially thought would be a fairly mundane, boring topic became very interesting as I explored it further and as I saw many children and many families whose children had this condition. I think for me why it's so important is because I believe ADHD is a touch point for many issues that pertain to childhood in general and to education in general and to parenting and discipline in general. So that really sparked my interest in ADHD, and the book that I've written on the topic is really for parents.
Yeah.
And it's for parents who have children with this condition to answer some of the more controversial questions that typically arise in discussions over the internet and, of course, in consultation. But yes, that really, I guess, summarizes my interest in the condition.
So we want to talk also about anxiety and some disorders, but just to quickly tackle the topic of ADHD, Dr. Jiva, I want to bring you in here. As a specialist in child and adult psychiatry, you're not only just a psychiatrist, but you're also an ADHD patient. Tell us quickly about your condition and how it is managed.
Well, throughout my school days and all the days, I was always in clean trouble. I don't know if you can have a clean trouble. And eventually, when I was becoming a psychiatrist in Canada, I saw all the kids that I was treating. I had the same thing throughout school days, and nobody picked it up. And because if you were a little higher functioning than other kids, you are missed totally. And that's how my interest into ADHD started. And that's how I started. I was assessed and treated, and I'm doing very well on my treatment. And it is interesting today that you talked about COVID and ADHD, and the other thing you also talked about that audio clip that you heard. So I wanted to clarify a little bit of that clip because
Please go ahead.
Familiar with that clip. Now that clip is in 3 parts. The first part, all the kids hear the sounds. ADHD kids and non-ADHD kids, that's the sounds that all the kids in the class hear. And that's the standard sounds. The second part is what the ADHD kids hear. They have what we call hyperacusis. We hear things louder than other people. So somebody's cracking popper or crisps or chips next to us that sounds so loud, and that really irritates us and disturbs us. So all these sounds, the whispering, the bells, the dogs, all the sounds become so loud, and then you can't focus. And the third part of that clip is that they took away the teachers and all the sounds, and you could only hear the teacher talking in the background. So the teacher fades in and out. So basically, when the parent or teacher gives the child an instruction, go upstairs, bring a book, bring the ticket, bring the traveler's checks and everything, the child goes up and only brings 1 out of the 3 things, or maybe 2. And the mother says, didn't I tell you to bring 3 things? So no, you didn't tell me. So it went, as I explained to the kids, it goes right through the gates of Harbeersport Dam. It's open like that. So whatever these sound, these voices goes right through, and you cannot catch it. So when you treat them with your famous drug that you don't like, Ritalin or stimulant, the gates close. So about 22 to 30% of what you lost, you get it back. And this is nothing to do with hearing deficit. This is part of the difficulty of the learning difficulty of ADHD. So that is the thing. So the instructions that parents and teachers give to the kids, a lot of it is missed.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation, Dr. Shabir. Dr. G, Dr. Brennan, if I can come back to you and talk a little bit about anxiety disorders. What is anxiety, and why do people categorize it as possibly making it, normalizing it, and yet it's a disorder?
I think the first point to make about that is that anxiety is actually a normal emotion. We all experience anxiety, and so do children. And so the difference comes in is when that anxiety is so severe that it causes what we would call functional impairment. In other words, that the functioning of that person, for example, a child, is compromised by that anxiety. For example, they avoid situations. They can't get to school because of their anxiety. They can't fall asleep or stay asleep because of their anxiety. I think the other important point to make about when anxiety is a disorder is that it causes subjective distress. And that's very important. Those of us who work with children, we need to talk to the child and understand from the child's perspective just how impaired they are by the symptoms of anxiety. It's extremely distressing to live with anxiety. So when there's functional impairment and when there's a lot of subjective distress, then in general, that's when we would start to talk about an anxiety disorder as opposed to just normal everyday anxiety.
Would you say that anxiety is increasing in children? And I know the lockdown and COVID-19 has bring a new light to all sorts of mental wellness and children being in an environment that they're not necessarily used to. So what is your opinion on anxiety disorders and the increase in children?
Certainly most of my colleagues would agree that, just anecdotally, we would agree that anxiety disorders are on the increase. I think it's difficult to categorically say that from good evidence-based data, but certainly anxiety disorders are being more commonly diagnosed, and that might be partly just due to increased awareness, but they probably are on the increase. We certainly know, for example, that depression, childhood depression, is definitely on the increase. has been well documented. With each successive generation since the Second World War, we've had an increase in the amount, and depression and anxiety often follow together or track together in children. So almost certainly, yes, anxiety disorders are on the increase in childhood.
Dr. Jiva, if I could just latch on to you again, a question that has come in from our viewer. It's asking Dr. Jiva, how does mental health affect children?
There's two parts. One is non-COVID and COVID, but because we talked about COVID today, the thing about ADHD kids and mental health and COVID, I'm going to put it together as one topic. So during the pandemic or COVID, what is happening, there's tremendous lack of structure and attention. And these kids, the Chinese did a study and they found there's a 40% increase in anxiety and depression during the pandemic. And the main thing is, as I said, lack of structure and a lack of routine. So the parents can come and help them to to get back the structure and the routine. So what things like structure with the waking up, sleeping, the meals, the exercise, that's one thing. The other thing that the parents can help them is to try and give them a calm environment. Now that is in everyday life is very difficult, but according to the literature, you need you need your own room, which is very difficult. You need a quiet place. You might need away from the distractions. What are the main distractions? The distractions are Zoom, video games, TV, and everything around the other siblings troubling the kids, and they get distracted. And ADHD kids prefer to be distracted rather than sitting and looking at a teacher online, which is very boring and very difficult. So on one side, we got to create a structure, and one side we create a routine, which is similar. Very important thing is exercise. Exercise is the hallmark of all those treatments for the kids for the during the pandemic, because they need to get exercise. And we found, it's slightly off topic, but we found that many patients who have ADHD during pandemic, the parents are not giving them medication properly, or they say, well, he's not at school, he doesn't need medication. They think it's only for school. So after a while, they start their medication again. So then here you can set up again video chats for the family and others. But the initial question is that anxiety and depression, mental health, how does it affect children? Children can get anxious, as Brandon said. They can get depressed. But most of the kids have some sort of fear when things get blocked, when they can't get their way. And ADHD always need to get their way. And pandemic is really controlling them. They can't get their way. So things get very difficult at home. The parents go crazy. The help gets crazy. The kids go up. And so I think the best thing has happened is this bi-weekly schooling. Actually, 1 week holiday and 1 week. So what is the bottom line of all of this? If you can take one message home, is screen time, because the kids just want to watch TV and PlayStation, Game Boy all day. Now, what is the normal rule in North America during non-COVID time? The American kids get Monday to Thursday, 30 to 45 minutes every day. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is supposed to be a weekend. They get 2 hours each. But COVID time is holiday. So it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday all the time. So you have to accede to the parents that, okay, you give them 2 hours every day, and that's where it stops. They say, no, but we can't stop it, because these kids are going to get very angry. They're going to get upset. Why would I want to see my kid upset and angry? And then my wife gets upset and everybody gets upset. So the screen time is very important. And for what it's worth, the Americans, the Germans feel that it causes a condition called digital dementia, and they still believe it's irreversible. So the only way to teach these kids that your brains are going to get fried, and you won't become as clever as you want to be, and then you won't be as rich as you want to be, because they all want to be rich and clever.
Absolutely.
The last thing is that there's an app called Our Pack, OUR space PACT. The parents can use this app on their phone, and from their phone they can control all the gadgets that the kids are using. So the TV can put off, the PlayStation, Game Boy, laptop, everything you want. You don't have to go and fight with your kid. You just program it and it will just go off, and they think for the first while they think something's wrong with the electronics or something. But you can control all that without going to fight with your kid. So Our Pack, OUR space PACT, is a good app to use.
So maybe we should fight for that law, 30 minutes a week for parents. Okay, for the children to implement. Dr. Brendan, quickly, on your side, what are some of the anxiety disorders that can be recognized within children and that are possibly even missed?
Well, I think firstly, most of anxiety disorders of adulthood can also be seen in childhood. They just present earlier in kids. For example, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder. But there are at least two anxiety disorders which are fairly unique to childhood, and those are separation anxiety disorder, which by definition involves a child having extreme fear of being separated from their attachment figures, their mother or their father, and that usually presents in early childhood. And then there's a condition, an interesting condition called selective mutism, where children just don't speak outside of the comfort of their homes. So they might spend a whole term or a whole year in a classroom, happily going to school, but not saying a word to their teacher or to their peers. And that's thought to be related to a form of social anxiety. But by and large, children can get any anxiety disorder that adults can get. And it's very important to recognize these anxiety disorders in childhood, because if they're not treated, they do affect the prognosis, the development of that child in many different ways. And it becomes a much harder condition to treat when that child is older, in adolescence or even in adulthood. And those habits or those avoidance behaviors have become more entrenched when that person is already has their personality already been established.
So basically built in when they're adults and very hard to change. So let's talk about treating it when they are children, and if medication is prescribed, are they safe for the children?
Well, yes, if they're properly prescribed and properly monitored. I think like many aspects of life, medication for psychiatric conditions, including anxiety and including in children, has the potential to do a lot of good. But if it's wrongly used or inappropriately used, then it can do harm. But no, these are safe medications. We're basically talking about a group of medications called the SSRIs, or the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And these medications have been researched in both adults and children. They are by and large safe. And yes, like any medications, they can have side effects, but none of those side effects are permanent, and they can generally be managed if that child is properly monitored by the doctor concerned.
Dr. Shabir, if I could just latch on to you, looking at ADHD, even anxiety disorders, is there a self-help or a holistic or natural remedy approach to these conditions? Dr. Shabir?
We have a great holistic program for our patients, and more than any medication, the most important treatment is exercise. Now, if you do, the latest work is you should do exercise 5 days a week, 30 to 45 minutes, enough to break out a sweat. So you can't go to the gym and socialize and look at the girls, and that doesn't work. You have to work out a sweat.
Yeah.
Secondly, that they have to sleep more than 6.5 hours a night. So during this COVID time, they sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the parents get them up at school at 8 o'clock. So if they sleep less than 6.5, they get very irritable. So number one is the exercise. Number two is the sleep. Number three is the diet. They need a high protein diet. So keep away from chocolate, coffee, Coke, all the stimulating foods. Eat more veggies. Cut down carbs. Cut down bread, rice, potato, pasta, all the things that we like. You have to cut that down and increase all the vegetables. And then number four, meditation is important. Islamically, if you do your prayers 5 times a day, you're way ahead. So that's part of it. And lastly, if all this doesn't work, then you have to add many times or most times medication. But medication is, as Brendan says, if it's monitored, it's rather very safe, and we monitor everything. So there's no problem of addiction, and there's no problem of becoming a zombie. And that this thought about zombie is that every medication has side effects. So in the first week or two, when you start the medication, sure, you might become a zombie. So what? You're not going to die. You just bring it down, lower it down. And in ADHD, Hallowell, who's the father of ADHD, he says, if the Ritalin doesn't work, if you're using Ritalin, just stop it. And,
Yeah.
and if it works, continue it. So there's nothing terrible is going to happen. So basically, we have got a lot of treatments, and parents should not be afraid. They should come out and get help and talk to their friends, look at the internet, look everywhere, talk to people. And if me and Brendan are here, but if you don't like your doctor, change him, go to somebody who knows what he's talking about, because ADHD
You guys
is
do.
a passion.
You guys do.
ADHD is not from books. It's something that you live it.
Yeah, Dr. Brendan Balsham, quickly, we have 30 seconds to wrap up. Your concluding comments and any safe literature, websites and connections that people can make with regards to ADHD and mental wellness.
Well, I would just like to say programs like this are very important to raise awareness, to help parents to see that, in fact, adults are not the only sufferers of mental illness. Children do suffer from mental illness, and children are severely impaired by mental illness, and the same kinds of mental illnesses that affect adults affect kids. So we need to have a high index of suspicion. We need to be talking to children, listening to children.
Yeah.
The old days of children should be seen and not heard, that's in the past. And now we need to be listening carefully to our kids.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to our doctors, Dr. Brendan Balsham and Dr. Shabir Ahmed Jiva. We appreciate your time, some pertinent and holistic information there. So don't miss out to tell your friends and family. Catch the repeats of it Wednesdays and Sundays, and also on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Dr. Brendan. All the best. And good evening. Enjoy the rest of your night. And assalamu alaikum to you, Dr. Shabir. Unfortunately, that's where we have to leave it right now. Please join us next week as we highlight what are you eating? What's the fuss about nutrition and diet? Nutrition Week next week. Join us. Wassalamu alaikum and goodbye for now.